Welcome back. This is the fourth video in my series of a rational ethicist. So in the three previous videos we discussed a few ethical principles. We have the anti-arbitariness principle to avoid unwanted arbitrariness. We had the maximize relative preferences principle, kind of utilitarian principle. And then we have the ontological principle, in the ontological ethics, the mere means principle, that says that everyone has a right to bodily autonomy. So these are three basic principles that perhaps are most defensible. They are the easiest to defend against criticism, against complaints. Yeah, it's very difficult to complain, to give reasonable counter-arguments against this mere means principle and this relative preference principle, for example. Yeah. Now, in this fourth video, I want to discuss other principles. Let's consider, for example, an environmental ethic. In environmental ethics, you can have a principle that values biodiversity. So we should protect or increase biodiversity. This means biodiversity has an intrinsic value. It's not related to the preferences of sentient beings in nature. It's not related to using people as means. No, valuing biodiversity means biodiversity should be valued for its own sake. Yeah. Now, you can construct an ethical system and introduce this new principle, it's then a fourth principle, that values biodiversity. However, it is allowed. It does not contain unwanted arbitrariness. So if everyone should respect or value all kinds of biodiversity, that does not include unwanted arbitrariness. There are no arbitrary exclusions. Yeah, it does not say that only I have to respect biodiversity, or only some kinds of biodiversity have to be respected. So no arbitrary exclusions. Okay, fine. Now, most rational ethicists are not in favor of this environmental ethic, of this principle that values biodiversity. And the reason is, if you look at nature, ecosystems, well, an ecosystem, it's actually an abstract set of organisms. Now, this ecosystem does not have any consciousness. It does not have preferences. It does not have a will. Yeah? It values nothing. Ecosystems basically don't care about their own biodiversity. If their biodiversity reduces, they do not experience a loss of biodiversity. And they don't care about this loss of biodiversity, of this natural habitat. Okay, so that means that if we value biodiversity, we are the ones who give intrinsic value of biodiversity. We project this value of biodiversity on an ecosystem. So here we can see a difference between valuing biodiversity and valuing well-being. So if I value your well-being, I give value, intrinsic value to your well-being. But there is always someone else besides me who also values your well-being, and that is you. You value your own well-being. So when I give intrinsic value to biodiversity, even if I was not there, or if I did not do that, there is always someone else who values well-being. That cannot be said with biodiversity. If we do not give value to biodiversity, or if we were not here, then a natural ecosystem itself does not value biodiversity. Yeah. So valuing well-being can be considered as more important as valuing biodiversity. Valuing preferences, valuing what other people want, that's more important than valuing biodiversity. So valuing biodiversity is it can be compared to an aesthetic value. I can value a painting, yeah? And in a museum, for example, there's a painting, and I consider it as very valuable, but the painting itself doesn't care about this artistic value of the painting. Yeah? The painting does not have a consciousness or experiences, does not value anything. And here we can see an important implication. If this aesthetic value, if I give a very strong aesthetic value to a painting, suppose burning house dilemma, house is burning, and if this painting is so valuable, I would save the painting instead of, for example, a child. Yeah? And that would be, according to most people, considered immoral. Yeah? We should save the child because the child has its own preferences, wants to avoid this burning sensation, and the painting does not have this preference to avoid this burning sensation in the burning house. So saving a painting would be considered immoral, and that is why we should not give too much value to paintings. And the same goes for biodiversity. Valuing biodiversity is a kind of aesthetic value. We value biodiversity. We value the naturalness or integrity or natural beauty of an ecosystem. But the ecosystem itself, or the animals in the ecosystem, they do not care about this natural order. Yeah. They only care about their own preferences. And so that is why it's very tricky to include this fourth principle to value biodiversity in your ethical system. Okay, we can look for other principles, other ethical principles. And what a rational ethicist does is to construct a coherent ethical system. So an ethical system that consists of ethical principles, and that system has to be coherent in the sense that it has to exclude the unwanted arbitrariness. That's what we saw in the first video. If you construct an ethical system, your choice for your ethical system, well, that has to avoid unwanted arbitrariness. Now we can construct different coherent ethical systems. Yeah? You can compare it with mathematics. Yeah? A mathematician constructs a mathematical theory. Let's look at number theory, the natural numbers. That starts with axioms. So these axioms in mathematics, they are kind of basic principles. So in the number theory, the natural numbers, we have the axiom that 0 is a number and every number has another number, a consecutive number that's also a number, following a number. Now that's an axiom, that every number has a consecutive number that's also a number. You can introduce another axiom that says that every number has two other numbers that follow this number. Yeah. That's also possible. That's called it exists in mathematics, it's called a Gaussian number theory, where every number, the number 0 for example, does not only have one as a follow-up number, but also another number, unnatural number that also is the follow-up number of 0. You can do that and the mathematical system becomes consistent. Okay, so you can construct different number theories. But what mathematicians don't do is construct a number theory that says that every number has another number that's as a follow-up number that's also a number, except the number 513. Yeah. That's an arbitrary exclusion. Why should the number 513 be excluded from this axiom? That's arbitrary. So the same goes in another mathematical theory, in geometry. So we have Euclidean geometry. There's an axiom that says that between every 2 points you can always draw a straight line. Between every 2 points. No arbitrary exclusions. Yeah. That's an axiom. Geometry does not say that, for example, between every 2 points you can draw a straight line, except for the points in the upper right corner of the plane. Yeah. That's an arbitrary exclusion. Why should the points in the upper right corner be any different? Yeah. So the axioms, they apply to all points, all lines in geometry. And the same goes for ethics. If you look at ethical principles, it says that everyone, everything should have this self-determination right, the right not to be used as merely a means. It says that everyone and everything, the preferences, the relative preferences of everyone and everything should be taken into account, should be respected. Okay, so we can construct different coherent ethical systems. That's what a rational ethicist does. Now, what do we do when we construct different coherent ethical systems? Like in number theory, there are different consistent number theories. In this case, we have to look for a kind of democratic vote. So the rational ethicists, they strive towards a kind of democratic consensus, an intermediate position or a kind of democratic vote to move to a consensus when their different coherent ethical systems are in conflict with each other. Yeah. Okay, now suppose that you are an irrational ethicist, which means you constructed an incoherent ethical system that includes unwanted arbitrariness. Yeah. So suppose you're a racist or you're a speciesist or you arbitrarily exclude individuals from the moral community. Now, if you construct an incoherent ethical system that includes unwanted arbitrariness, then actually we can exclude you from this democratic vote. It's permitted for us to exclude you in this democratic procedure. And the point is you cannot complain against this exclusion. So if you have an incoherent ethical system, you're not allowed to vote, we exclude you. If you complain, if you say, look, my vote counts as well, then we can say, no, your ethical system contains unwanted arbitrariness. So that means that you say, by using your incoherent ethical system, you acknowledge that arbitrary exclusions are permitted. So we can arbitrarily exclude you from this democratic vote. Because, that's logical. If you say it yourself, that arbitrary exclusions are permitted, then we can arbitrarily exclude your incoherent ethical system from this democratic vote. So that is the basic reason why we have to avoid unwanted arbitrariness. That summarizes the theory of rational ethics. So to summarize again, we start a rational ethicist strives towards a coherent ethical system, so a set of moral values and principles that are consistent, consistency in ends. Yeah. Then look for the most effective means to reach those ends, and then look for accurate beliefs to find the effective means. The accurateness in beliefs means that we have to do science and investigate, use evidence. We cannot use pseudoscience, we cannot arbitrarily look at data or studies, we cannot cherry pick, because that will result in inaccurate beliefs in pseudoscience. So a rational ethicist applies critical thinking in ethics, is very tolerant towards all kinds of coherent ethical systems, allows a democratic vote amongst those coherent ethical systems, but the rational ethicist is not tolerant towards intolerance, for example, towards incoherent ethical systems. Yeah, we should not tolerate intolerance. Intolerance means that you basically arbitrarily exclude people, or that your ethical system contains unwanted arbitrariness. So this wraps up this fourth video. Thank you for watching.